Nobody expected the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to stand here, counting wins while the rest of the league barely noticed. Yet somehow, a roster that fought through injuries, doubts, and endless criticism is being written off again. There is a hidden story in Tampa, a story about players who refuse to quit, who refuse to stay quiet, who refuse to be forgotten. And if you think this team is just another middle-of-the-pack contender, you might be missing one of the most dangerous threats in the entire NFL. The shocking part is how quickly people forget what this roster has done. They see Tristan Wirfs ranked high, sure, but then scroll right past Baker Mayfield, right past Mike Evans, right past Vita Vea, right past a defense built to punish anyone who steps on the field. These are names that should make headlines, but instead they're being overlooked by lists, rankings, and critics who never learned from last season. The Buccaneers thrive on being doubted. They use it like fuel, and the longer you sleep on them, the more powerful they get. What nobody's talking about is how a simple ranking list could light a fire in this entire locker room. When a quarterback who threw for 41 touchdowns gets called the 8th best, or a wide receiver who tied Jerry Rice's record is dropped into the 80s, that is more than just an insult. That is a challenge. And Tampa Bay accepts every challenge. Because this year, they are built to shatter expectations again. And the first clue is buried inside Pete Prisco's top 100 list, where the real controversy starts. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Bucs and all the NFL content. Can we get 250 likes on this video? There is a reason fans were left shaking their heads when Pete Prisco's top 100 list dropped. The first Buccaneer to show up was Tristan Wirfs, sitting comfortably at number 20, and that felt fair. But scroll deeper and you'll find something that might shock you. Baker Mayfield, after launching 41 touchdowns last season with a battered receiving core, ended up buried at 57. That is the same Mayfield who survived one of the toughest defensive schedules in the league, who stepped into a team everyone counted out and led them back to the postseason. How does a season that good get treated like a footnote? That is what makes this list so hard to believe. The confusion only grew when Mike Evans, one of the most reliable receivers of this era, got dropped to number 82. You cannot hide 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, no matter how many shiny young names you want to hype up. Evans tied Jerry Rice's record, the most consistent wideout in football, yet somehow names like Terry McLaurin and even Malik Neighbors landed ahead of him. When lists ignore that kind of proven production, they lose more than credibility. They risk handing out bulletin board material to a player who lives for these moments. Evans has built his entire career on showing up when it matters most. And what about the defensive anchors who never even saw their names called? Vita Vea did enough damage last year to draw constant double teams, and Levante David continues to lead with veteran fire. Both left off the top 100, both ignored, both waiting to turn that frustration into motivation. The entire top 100 list should have been a celebration of Tampa Bay's foundation, but instead, it read like an open invitation for the Buccaneers to break through all over again. But the real spark sits under center, because Baker Mayfield's ranking might be the most confusing part of all, and that's where this story heads next. Baker Mayfield is no rookie, but the way some analysts talk about him, you'd think he just arrived in the league with something to prove. Last season, he posted career highs while carrying a battered offense that lost Chris Godwin mid-year and leaned on backups more times than he could count. Yet even with those obstacles, Baker stood tall and delivered 4,500 yards through the air, slicing through defenses with a calm confidence that reminded everyone why he was a number 1 overall pick in the first place. He outperformed names who were crowned media darlings, but somehow ended up ranked as the 8th quarterback in the entire NFL. That is the kind of snub that builds a fire no training camp can put out. What nobody's talking about is how those numbers stack up next to the so-called elite. Baker had a higher completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes over the past 2 seasons, more touchdown passes, and nearly identical interception rates. Those are facts that cannot be twisted away, and yet Mahomes still sits comfortably at the top of the list while Mayfield is shoved into the 50s. It almost feels like a legacy bias, ignoring what has actually happened on the field. Mayfield is not trying to be a highlight reel quarterback, he is trying to win, and he showed last year exactly how to do it under pressure. The craziest part is, Mayfield did this without a top-tier run game for most of the season, and with a brand new play caller guiding him through a tricky system. There is a reason the Buccaneers believe in him, because he has proven he can lift a team that refuses to fold. With his weapons returning healthier, a line ready to protect him, and a personal mission to silence every critic, Baker is heading into 2025 ready to rewrite the story again. But if the disrespect toward him feels wild, what happened to Mike Evans on this list might be even worse, and that deserves a closer look. Nobody with a straight face can deny what Mike Evans has done year after year, but you would never know it looking at that ranking. The man tied Jerry Rice with 11 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. That is not a lucky streak. That is a career built on discipline and production. Evans has carried the Buccaneers through quarterback changes, injuries, playoff runs, and still shows up on Sundays ready to punish secondaries. Dropping him behind players who have yet to put together even 3 consistent seasons feels almost insulting, as if the history he is making means nothing in a league obsessed with shiny new faces. Fans should ask, how does one of the most reliable receivers of his generation keep getting treated like a side note? And then there is Chris Godwin, who barely got a mention despite being the ultimate do-it-all weapon for Tampa Bay. Sure, injuries slowed him down last season, but Godwin has been the chain mover, the safety valve, the guy who takes hits over the middle and still pops right back up. He is one of the smartest route runners in football, a technician who makes tough catches look routine. Leaving him off the list completely is a signal that sometimes the voters only remember the highlight reel plays, forgetting the dirty work that wins games. Godwin is the kind of player any coach would beg to keep on the roster, and he is about to prove why all over again. The story that should be told is that Evans and Godwin are still one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, no matter what anyone says. They have carried quarterbacks, made clutch catches, and stood strong through every setback. And if you think they are going to back down now, think again. Because there is a new name joining them who shares that same underdog spirit, a rookie already burning with motivation, and he is going to turn heads this fall. There is something different about Benjamin Morrison, and you can feel it already. This rookie cornerback did not slip to the second round because of talent. He slipped because of one bad break, a hip injury that ended his final season at Notre Dame and scared off teams who should have known better. Even with that setback, Morrison faced top-level college receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr., showed he could lock down some of the best. His confidence never wavered, and the moment Tampa Bay called his name, he circled one date on his calendar with a sense of unfinished business. Week 11 against the Buffalo Bills, the team that promised him they would draft him and then chose another player instead. What nobody seems to realize is how that small snub could change Morrison's entire rookie year. He is not a player hoping to survive training camp, he is a player already preparing to dominate. When you hear him talk about taking on Josh Allen, about wanting to grab 2 interceptions and then look the Bills staff in the eye, you see exactly what makes him fit with Tampa Bay's culture. Morrison carries the same relentless attitude as veterans like Lavonte David, the same chip on his shoulder as Baker Mayfield. He wants respect, and he is coming to get it by force. That is not normal rookie talk. That is a mission. Every time you count out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they remind you why football can be so unpredictable. This roster is stacked with names who have built their careers on proving people wrong. From Baker Mayfield's comeback fire to Mike Evans making NFL history, from Antoine Winfield Jr.'s versatility to Lavonte David's leadership. Add a rookie like Benjamin Morrison, who is already locking in on revenge games, and you have a team loaded with personal stories of pride, resilience, and unfinished business. These players do not fear being underestimated. They feed off it. That is the kind of attitude that can flip an entire season upside down. So what happens next? That is up to them, and it might just shock everyone. Could this be the season where Baker leads the Bucs deeper into the postseason? Do you believe Benjamin Morrison will rise fast enough to anchor a playoff-level defense? Drop your answers below, because I want to hear what you think about this underdog story. If you are fired up about Tampa Bay's chances, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe right now so you never miss a single breakdown. Stay tuned because this team is only getting started, and you will not want to miss what comes next.